show, because today's show is very, very important, because a few years ago during the pandemic, we decoded a couple of films back to back that were about a virus causing people to lose their senses. Their senses were diminished one by one. And so you have to ask yourself, what was that about? Well, we're going to get into that today and try to break all that down. And I told you back then that this was going to manifest in weird ways as we moved forward into this era of the post-pandemic world. Hope you help buy yourself that shotgun, Casey. You're amazing. I love you all. Thank you so much, KKP. I'm probably going to try to get one before the season ends and get myself a turkey and just slow roast the turkey in a pot and just enjoy some good organic turkey right out of the field. Now, what is this about with this tinnitus? Well, let's read about what's happening with tinnitus and what they're now acknowledging and admitting, which a lot of us had talked about that it would happen. And then we'll get into the plots of the two films in which a virus caused the loss of senses one by one. Now, this is all about the nervous system. This is NBC News. New theories of the possible link between the Pokemon stickers on your screen and tinnitus are emerging. Now, even though this is a mainstream article, got to be careful how I cover this. Thousands of people say they developed tinnitus after they were smack-vaccinated against VIDCO-19. While there's no proof yet that the vaccines caused the condition, theories for a possible link have surfaced among researchers. An associate professor in the physiology department at the College of Medicine at the University of Arizona believes that ongoing inflammation, especially in the brain or spinal cord, may be to blame. So, this is the nervous system. And like I said, in the very beginning, before this thing ever came to market, we did videos talking about the nervous system being affected by these things before it ever came to market. Now, I'm very hesitant to show those videos because, it's amazing we didn't get struck out when we posted them, but the way we covered it as safely as possible to not get deleted. But we said this back when this started. Now, this guy was a long-time tinnitus sufferer, representative of the American Tinnitus Association Scientific Advisory Board, and had studied tinnitus for more than a decade. Facebook group of people who developed tinnitus after getting the vaccine convinced Bao to look into the possible link. He ultimately surveyed 398 of the group's participants. The case tended to be severe. One man told Bao that he couldn't hear the car radio over the noise in his head while driving. So this is far beyond the regular tinnitus that many of us suffer from. I get tinnitus, and I've had it for 20-something years. I've had tinnitus, and it's subtle. Sometimes it's worse than others. If I have too much salt in my diet, it can get worse. But as you guys know, back when I was doing device sales, this was before I was awake. This was in 2010, I believe. I got a full round of vaccines just to enter the hospital, and that was the requirement of that job. And I think at that point is when I developed tinnitus. I mean, I'd had it off and on before that because I used to listen to a lot of loud music when I was younger, but it got really bad after that. Now, let's keep reading here. Headaches, dizziness, vertigo, ear pain, anxiety, depression. Significantly more people first developed tinnitus after the first dose of the vaccine compared with the second. This suggests that the vaccine is interacting with pre-existing risk factors for tinnitus. Well, there's only a couple things that could be at play here. And I believe it's all centered around the nervous system, the nerve that goes into your ear that sends the signal. Something has been altered. causing this to intensify. Is there a link between smack scenes and tinnitus? As of Sunday, 16,000 people had filed complaints that they had developed tinnitus after receiving a VidCo-19 smack the nation. After internal reviews of the reports, the CDC did not find any data suggesting a link between VidCo-19 smack scenes and tinnitus. Wow. So, the CDC has not, however, made those reviews public as it did after looking at other possible smack scene side effects such as inflammation of the heart or myocarditis. Frustrating leading vaccine expert Dr. Gregory Poland, founder and director of Mayo Clinic Smack the Nation Research Group. Why has the C to the D to the C not done all of its research that they should do on this? So, people are getting this. It's a shrill, constant whistle, a noise. Can you imagine this happening to you? How scared you would be if you had never experienced this before? Now, like I said, I've had subtle tinnitus for decades, and you get used to it after a while. It just becomes a part of your life. But can you imagine not ever having this and all of a sudden this being your life? It would probably drive many people insane. Now, we'll go back into the chat, and then I'm going to read some of the plots of these films that talk about this specifically, about this tinnitus. Let's do a quick sound check. Someone mentioned something about the mic. Is everything okay? And then we'll keep going with this. Let's go in the chat. Good morning, everybody. Now, do any of you know anyone who got the Smack the Nation, who this is happening to? I would like to hear your thoughts on this, because then people can put two and two together. Now, absolutely, this could have something to do with the frequency. Think about it. A signal being sent. Remember, we talked about that as well, the 5G signal. And you have to ask yourself if the two are connected. If this signal is affecting these people, they're hearing the signal. Now, I think there are probably different forms of tinnitus for different reasons. In this case, this could be, these people could have been prepped for the signal. It'll be interesting to see how this starts to affect people in the coming weeks and days. Now, here's the first movie we decoded a couple years ago called Perfect Sense. It stars Ewan McGregor. I used to like this actor. I used to like a lot of actors before I woke up. He played Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. I thought he played a great role in that. But let's read about the plot of what happened in the movie. An epidemic begins to spread throughout the globe, causing humankind to lose their sensory perceptions one by one. The story focuses on two people. Susan, one of a team of epidemiologists who are trying to find the cause of the disease, and Michael, a chef who works at a busy restaurant located next to Susan's flat. The two meet and get to know each other as the epidemic progresses, a relationship which soon turns to love. Humans begin to lose their senses one at a time. Each loss is preceded by an outburst of intense feeling or urge. First, people began suffering uncontrollable bouts of crying, and then this is soon followed by the loss of their sense of smell. An outbreak of irrational panic and anxiety, closely followed by a bout of frenzied gluttony, precedes the loss of the sense of taste. The film depicts people trying to adapt to each loss, trying to carry on living as best they can, rediscovering their remaining senses as they do so. Michael and his co-workers do their best to cook food for people who cannot smell or taste. Here's the important part. The loss of hearing comes next. It is accompanied by an outbreak of extreme anger and rage. Michael experiences it first and is verbally abusive at Susan, who flees in fear, losing her own hearing shortly afterwards. Despite her knowing that it was the disease that caused the outbursts, Susan cannot face Michael again. People struggle to adjust and go on living. One day, every person on Earth suddenly experiences a feeling of joyful euphoria. Susan realizes she both forgives and still loves Michael and rushes to his job. The two find each other and embrace, just as they and the rest of the world become blind. Now, we decoded this. As I said, I'll put a link to the decode in the pinned comment for those of you that have not seen this. I think most of you have. But this is a really good film that shows the predictive programming of the things that had not happened yet. Here's the other film. This one is called Embers, and it's almost the same plot. This was in 2015, and Perfect Sense was in 2011. What is Embers about? Embers tells the story of those who, a decade after a global epidemic, remain and suffer from the lasting effects of the virus. Retrograde and anterograde amnesia. Survivors navigate a decaying landscape, unable to recall the past or create new memories. 5 interwoven stories each explore a different facet of life without memory in a future that has no past. So part of this, in losing their memory, is also losing their senses. They forget what stuff tastes like. They forget what sounds are and all these other things. So I'll put a link to that decode as well. Wow. Now I want to get into some other headlines today. Remember, we talked about hair color and skin color and copper's role in hair and skin color. We just talked about this a few days ago. Well, look at what popped into my feed. This could be why your hair turns gray and other health stories you may have missed. It's been a busy week. And, okay, that's not about that. Let's keep going down there. Here it is. A study published on Wednesday may have answered why our hair turns gray as we age. Let's see if they mention copper in here at all. Researchers at New York University, Grossman School of Medicine, studied melanocyte stem cells in mice, a type of cell that's also found in humans, and discovered that these cells may eventually get stuck as one ages, eventually losing the ability to move between growth compartments in hair particles and produce the pigment that provides hair color. If this result is also applicable to humans, researchers are hopeful it could lead to the discovery of a way to prevent hair from losing its youthful hue. The newfound mechanisms raise the possibility that the same fixed position of the melanocyte stem cells may exist in humans. So, it presents a potential pathway for reversing or preventing the graying of human hair by helping jammed cells to move again between developing hair follicle compartments. So apparently these are the cells here, and they get stuck. So this is about communication between these cells. So now if I were to dig in this, I would sure I would find the copper key, copper component to all this. Well, let's keep going. More headlines today. Now, one of you sent me this story, and I almost wasn't going to cover it, but this is a prime example of how there is no right and left. In this picture, you see Bush, Clinton, and Obama teaming up on an immigrant program. And this is the kind of stuff that makes you realize that voting isn't real. Because if you ask any Obama supporter from the era, I still have people that I know that every once in a while they'll check in with me, and they were all about Obama. And if you ask any of them from their memory they will tell you that these two were mortal enemies and they hated Bush. And the same goes for people who were Bush supporters who hated Obama. Notice how they allow certain kinds of hate, don't they? Oh, the rhetoric. I remember, because during the Bush years, I was a huge supporter of Bush and was devastated when Obama won because I was still asleep. I didn't understand that all of that rhetoric was to get you and I hating each other, and that these two don't hate each other. They're buddies. They're all part of the club. And you ask yourself, okay, look, they're in this picture. Casey, this is a positive thing. This is a good thing, right? They're coming together. No, because if they were coming together, they would come together publicly and tell America to stop fighting with each other, wouldn't they? That would be their goal, not getting together for this immigration program. They would be coming out publicly on some kind of speech circuit and saying, enough of the fighting between the parties. Let's find a way to come together, wouldn't they? But instead, they reveal the deception by their working together silently. So you have two Democrats and one Republican that are supposed to be mortal enemies, all working together. Now, what is the purpose of the division of right and left? Well, it's to destabilize American culture, right? So that we ignore the mounting black hole that's coming over the horizon, which is rising energy costs that will enslave every single working family in America. Low wages that are not keeping up with the cost of living. Joblessness, at least real jobs, not jobs making a minimum wage that are unsustainable to support a family, but real jobs. In other words, jobs that keep up with the higher cost of living. And the rising obligations by design, taxation, as well as secret hidden rising costs, and the rising obligations coming across the border. We're going to talk a little bit about the border today and what's going on. But let's read this first. Bush, Obama, and Clinton team up together in the new project. Oh, it's a new project. 3 days ago. This can't be good, says the article. Former Presidents Barack Obama, Bush, Clinton have just teamed up with a new NGO that aims to fly migrants into the United States. Welcome U.S. and American Express Global Business Travel have teamed up with Obama, Clinton, and Bush to start a new initiative called Miles for Migrants. Its main objective is to raise money in order to fly migrants from countries such as the Ukraine, Haiti, and Venezuela. Rising obligations when our own house is not in order. Now notice how they twist this, right? Because if you think about it, this would be the godly thing to do, right? To help your brother, to help someone who's needy. But they're framing this in a way to create intentional imbalance. They're taking something good and doing something bad with it. Let me give you an example. Let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example for you guys. Let's say that somebody that you loved passed away. And the way that they died was that they fell into a fire. They got burned by a fire. And at their funeral, you brought like something, like you showed up in a fire truck I don't know. That's probably a really poor example, but you get what I'm trying to say. You're trying to do something good, but it ends up being something bad. And this is what they're doing. This is how they mock the Most High. They try to mock him. But here's the program, Miles for Migrants. And here they're increasing American obligation when our own house is far, far, far from being in order. Now, let me check in with you guys. We'll get into some of the last stories today. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for showing up today. Now, my contractor asked me to look at a new phenomenon that's beginning to happen. I don't know if any other channels have covered this, but Chinese migrants are coming over the border on foot. Look at this. Let's see if this will play.
Fingertips of people wanting to leave China for the U.S.
Can you show me the sort of information that
the number of Chinese nationals who are traveling halfway across the world, transiting through a dozen countries to make it to the border and into America.
Are you kidding me?
Leaving China was a decision Kevin felt he had to make to avoid what he called punishment for speaking out against corruption. He says he was jailed twice and allegedly mistreated by authorities. His family is still in China. That's why we're hiding his identity.
What was the biggest risk to staying?
I'll be going to jail.
You would go to jail?
I will be go to jail. Yeah, of course.
According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, at least 4,300 Chinese migrants have been caught crossing.
And these are just the ones they caught, you guys. 4,300 Chinese migrants. Now, understand that, you know, as we read between the headlines, right? Because I don't believe all the headlines we're told. I believe that this is meant to ignite the right? So if you're a right-leaning person, you would want to re-elect Trump, for instance, thinking that he could solve this problem. So I think this might be a fake story. And this is why they have the guy's identity covered up. And this is to ignite the right, to get people at the border in Texas and Arizona and whatever else, New Mexico, to go, you know what? This is Biden's fault and we need Trump back. Make no mistake. I stand by this. Trump will be reelected. I hope I'm not wrong about this, because there's very few things that I say as a matter of fact, but there's so much research that we've done on Trump. He's not finished yet, okay? There's more that Apollo has to do. Let's keep listening to this.
The southern border illegally in the past 5 months alone, more than double the total for all of last year. Kevin told us about his journey that took several weeks by plane, bus, boat, and motorcycle.
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
Treacherous jungles in the Darien Gap before ending on foot at this barren section of the border where he finally got through. And the migrants we've met, including Kevin, say they aren't paying smugglers. They're able to do it all with information, maps, and advice readily available on Chinese social media.
Oh, boy.
How much information is out there helping people make the same journey that you made?
Oh, they have a lot of information, trust me.
Step by step, it's all there. This is how you get to America.
Yes, of course, step by step.
Chinese social media sites are even giving tips on where to cross. Here in California, it's considered a better bet over Arizona or Texas because of its immigration policies.
So just how much is there at the fingertips of people wanting to leave China for the U.S.?
Can you show me the sort of information that's out there online?
没问题。
Producer Arnie Hakela and I met with Zhang, who left his family behind in China.
这是墨西哥的部分的攻略。
Okay, this is detailing out the Mexico portion. You can see the cities are listed here. It even tells you like which buses to take and from where to where.
Zhang took us into chat groups on the Telegram app that offer information.
Now, again, if you're just tuning in, this is, I believe these kinds of stories are floated, and this could be a completely made-up story to ignite the right, to force your hand out of fear to cast your vote, which then will open the door for all the other things that they want to do with their agenda moving forward.
On everything, where to stay, how to get there, even how much cash they'll need to bring.
The new phenomenon is people are trying to make money from this information. So they're giving a little bits of information out at a time. And if you want more information about particular routes, or if you get further along in your journey, they're going to
I mean, this is like Survivor or something, or like a treasure hunt. Remember that show that came out in like, I think the 2000s, and a group of people would like have to go on like a mission and find different things and unlock other codes or whatever. This is kind of like what this sounds like. Now, I'm going to go into the chat and ask you guys what you see. What do you notice about this story that they're not saying? What about this story are they not saying, but that is completely obvious to anyone looking at the images? Let's see who gets it. Good morning. Hey, John, Connie, Elizabeth, Break the Spell, Melissa. Ain't buying it. Okay, what is the big elephant in the room and that they're not saying in the story? Okay. They aren't talking about the children. Absolutely, you're close, Rachel. It's all men. Yes, Kermit. They're all men. Now, what are the odds of that? Is that even possible? Is that even possible? No. People aren't going to just go without their family. Let's keep watching this here. I don't see one child or woman. Watch.
Demand more and more money.
What kind of money are we talking about? What is this information worth?
比如说从墨西哥
At the US-Mexico border, if you want information on where exactly is best to cross, that's going to run between $1,300 and $2,000 US. If you want a guarantee that you won't be apprehended by CBP, that's going to run you about $10,000 to $20,000.
I mean, who are these people? This guy doesn't even sound like he's from China. I mean, this guy seems like a CIA operative. Now understand that our government wants us to be China. Okay? This is the goal. Even Trump wants us to be China. We've talked about this before, how he's already prepared his children and family who all speak fluent Mandarin. Why do you think that is? Because they're going to be the future leadership working with China to be like China. This is why his nanny, Zizi, is Chinese. So, in typical Janus form, he says one thing and makes everyone afraid of the China virus and we got to compete with China, but really he's working with them. That's the big secret.
$20,000.
That more Chinese are undertaking such a radical journey with no guarantees in the U.S. comes as the country is emerging from years of harsh zero-COVID rules and facing a wilting economy.
I think what we're seeing now are people who are more middle class, who just feel that the opportunities are diminishing and that the political situation has just become a lot riskier. And so they are finding...
Now, when I say America is going to become like China, I'm not saying that there's going to be Chinese people walking the streets of America on a large scale. What I'm saying is they want the Chinese form of surveillance, police state, government, the social credit system, and all those things. That's why they want us and how they want us to look like China.
Any method, by hook or by crook, to get out of China.
An exodus driven by the power of social media.
And NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer joins us now from Beijing live. Janice, what's happening to these asylum seekers once they get to the United States?
Look at this guy. He's playing like the left, right? Obviously, this is a left-leaning news outlet. Well, what is happening to these poor asylum seekers once they're escaping persecution in China? This is supposed to enrage you too, right? You've got the liberal here who's completely oblivious, if this was a real story, completely oblivious to the kind of problem that this can cause based on the paradigm of fear that they've already impregnated into America and the right. Fear of losing your national identity, fear of minorities becoming majorities and white people becoming the minority over time. These are real fears of people on the right. And so they toss this guy out there. Oh, the poor asylum seekers. Okay. All of this is meant to enrage you, to get you invested in the process of giving your consent away through voting. Then they can do whatever they want. It's like signing an oath to let them lead you.
Once they get to the United States.
Oh, look at it. Wait, hold on.
Gotti, the people selling the
Gotti?
Janice,
like John
what's
Gotti?
Happening to these asylum seekers? Joins us now
face.
from Beijing live. Janice, what's happening to these asylum seekers once they get to the United States?
I mean,
Gotti, the people
this is laughable. He looks so inauthentically concerned, doesn't he? And it's because it's all scripted.
The information on social media will guarantee for a price to have someone meet these Chinese migrants at the border. Though in a lot of cases, we were told they actually want to be picked up by CBP because that then allows them to begin their asylum process in the U.S. From there, every situation is different. Some people will start to work to pay off the debts that they have to family and friends, the money that helped get.
Look at this. This doesn't even look real. Like, why would a drone be flying over a group of people walking through the mountains? I did see one or two children in this picture here. I mean, are these just pre-filmed stock footage or something? Let's see here.
Family and friends.
Wish we could slow this down. This just looks staged, doesn't it? Like a photo op. Let's take a closer look.
The money that helped get them there, while others.
Are these people even Chinese? I mean, all we see is the back of their head.
Like Kevin, who you saw.
They look more like Mexican migrants here.
On the story, are okay for cash, and that allows time to study English and settle in a bit better. What isn't clear right now is whether this spike.
So, obviously, they're saying these people are coming, and they're basically saying that this is where everything's headed. Wow.
And the number of Chinese nationals is actually going to trend higher. China has only just reopened its borders after harsh zero COVID rules kept the country effectively shut. And that was also a time when most Chinese passports were not being renewed. So with more Chinese nationals now able to travel, and with Title 42 expiring in May, there could be more people undertaking this journey. It's something that both Kevin and Jung told us when we were doing this story.
So there's more coming. So we're talking tens of thousands of people. Only 4,000 were caught. I don't believe that number either, but.
That most Chinese are well aware of Title 42 expiring, and they predict a rush at the border. Gotti?
In the surge of migrants illegally crossing the Mexico-U.S. border, there's now a growing number of Chinese nationals.
So there you go. Those are the updates on that. So yesterday I mentioned that we would talk a little bit more about the end of bunker fuel, global shipping. And that is the main fuel, of course, that is used. It's the white elephant in the room, the one glaring example of how the controllers ignored for so many years the most heavy polluters, while spotlighting you and me and our habits, guilt tripping us, making us feel bad, threatening our meat supply and everything else. Well, now they've seemed to switch gears, and the attack on bunker fuel has begun. Let's read about what they're planning here. Global shipping is under pressure to stop its heavy fuel oil use fast. That's not simple, but changes are coming. Most of the clothing and gadgets you buy in the store were once in shipping containers sailing across the oceans. Ships carry over 80% of the world's traded goods, but they have a problem. The problem is that the majority of them burn heavy sulfur fuel oil, which is a driver of climate change. While cargo ships' engines have become more efficient over time, the industry is under growing pressure to eliminate its carbon footprint. European Union legislators reached an agreement to require an 80% drop in shipping fuel's greenhouse gas intensity by 2050, and to require shipping lines to pay for the greenhouse gases their ship releases. Now, all this equates to higher prices for you and me. That's what this is going to equate to, and the shortage of goods. And it will be much, much harder to get the things that we're used to getting at a low price. And this will continue the trend of economic slavery that all of us have begun to experience over the years. Now, I've got a few more stories for you guys today before we wrap up. Look at this out of the Hill. The Biden administration organizes its first nationwide vaccination day targeting black communities. So it sounds like Biden has some big plans for the black communities. Remember, the black community as a group were the most hesitant about getting vaccinated, weren't they? And Biden's not going to take no for an answer. Let's read about the day for black people. Biden administration on Saturday held its first nationwide vaccination day, running pop-ups across 21 cities to boost the Smack the Nation rates in black communities. The event was part of the White House's broader We Can Do This public education campaign for Smack the Nation. Community organizations like the Black Nurse Collaborative, Top Ladies of Distinction, and 100 Black Men of America partnered with the Department of Health and Human Services to provide free Smack the Nations to community members. So, notice how they use the pendulum of the right-left paradigm to swing people back and forth. People of color are probably more apt to trust a Biden and his offering of a smack scene, aren't they, than they would of a Trump, because of the way that they have us divided. Here's our last story for the day. A cattle mutilation story. This is going on in Texas. Texas Longhorns with their tongues removed. Now, we've always made the association and the metaphor that cattle are the people. In fact, the word vaccine came out of the word vaca, which means cow in Spanish. The story, April 23rd, 2023. And the tongues were removed from the cattle. And I believe this is just metaphor for our tongues being removed. 6 cattle were mysteriously found dead with their tongues removed and no sign of blood spilled, mystifying Texas authorities this week. Now, if any of you live in Texas, have you heard this story? I'd be interested to know. Ranchers in Madison County found a 6-year-old Longhorn cross cow lying on her side, deceased and mutilated, along a state highway in east central Texas. Now, this could all feed into the UFO phenomenon as well, with cattle mutilations, as well as the Apollo hecatomb sacrifice. The animal's tongue had been completely removed from the body with no blood spill after a straight, clean cut with apparent precision had been made to remove the hide around the cow's mouth on one side, according to the sheriff's office. I wonder if they have pictures of any of this. This is crazy, you guys. Now, tomorrow we are taking a trip back in time to a video that I felt really summarized the root of the spiritual battle that we're faced with. And it was all revealed in a detailed breakdown of God's temples on earth. Solomon's temple and the tabernacle. Now, what did we find in that analysis? Well, you're going to see that tomorrow. But basically, to summarize, God's temple, and as men advanced through the temple, the high priests, men of iron blood, advancing past the unclean copper sacrificial altars into the golden holy of holies. This is the spiritual path that all of us must take to advance into the kingdom. Let me go into the chat, see what you guys are up to. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Now, tomorrow's show will be a re-upload. I'll put links to everything we talked about today in the pinned comment. But, wow. We have a troll in the chat here. Let's take a look. All right. All right, you guys. Well, I will see you tomorrow. Much love to everybody who showed up today. Take care and be safe, you guys. Much love. Hey, Lisa.